This is the KD50S, a very compact 5-inch Cinewoop. It's only 24 centimeters across, or 9.5 inches, and the way it's able to be so small for a 5-inch Cinewoop is because the props are overlapping. So you can see there, these props would hit each other, but they've been offset with spacers, so the diagonal props here and here are at a different level, and then they all meet in the middle with one standoff in the center, the rest going out on the edge, creating an incredibly stiff frame that has really high performance and obviously is much, much smaller than a normal 5-inch Cinewoop, while still able to carry cameras like this Blackmagic 4K G2 or naked Blackmagic, mounting holes here, even full-size cameras with the DAC mount, or you could put a GoPro and there are press nut holes to fit a GoPro mount on here. This frame has enabled me to take these cinema cameras to a whole new level in terms of something very compact with fantastic flight performance, as you'll see, good flight times, and really nice footage out of the camera because of the performance of the frame. So I'm going to show you all of the features, but first we're going to look at some flight footage, and then after we're going to look at the assembly guide. And here it is, the KD50S. And the first thing you'll notice is obviously the size. So I'm going to bring in a normal sized 5-inch comparison. And obviously this is an X8, but the exact same size, this KD50 also comes in an X4, just using the top and bottom plates. So if I put these next to each other, you can really see how much of an advantage you get by having those overlapping props and really squeezing everything in together. So this being only 24 centimeters wide really gives it that advantage and also makes the whole frame a fair amount lighter. So the main feature here is that you have this TrueX configuration with the 5-inch props overlapping each other, which enables everything to be so compact. So this single standoff in the middle provides a lot of rigidity along with these bits of the bottom plate. And if I turn this way, you can see how these props are not hitting each other. And that is because these spacers here, where these motor screws go all the way through, are staggering them. And so they pass freely while being much more compact than a regular build. And that means also that the props go over all of the electronics. So here I've got this cover, which reduces the noise coming from the props, just aerodynamic noise is what I call it, where these sort of small vibrations coming from the air rushing over the flight controller can sometimes cause extra vibrations. You don't always need this cover, but it's included if you want it. And the obvious thing that people will say is, does this decrease efficiency? Do you get loads of noise from the props overlapping? And yes, it is slightly less efficient. However, that is really made up for by the fact that this frame is so much smaller and lighter. So as you saw in the flight footage, The second part of it, sort of cruising around like a Cinewhoop, I'm getting 5.5 minutes even on a 6S2000. So there's plenty of flight time for a Cinewhoop. And flying it really hard, you get sort of 2.5 minutes. But most of the time you're not flying like that, but obviously as seen in the flight footage, you can. So I've got everything installed in here. I've got the BEC for the camera power, which is going up to here to my Blackmagic. And speaking of camera mounting, you've got 3 different options for this. The first one you saw at the start is this KD camera mount light, which goes on these 30.5 by 30.5 mounting holes, and there are press nuts which are included in there that screws into, and that will take the Blackmagic Micro 4K really well. The second option is naked Blackmagic mounting holes, and you can see these 4 screws here in the standard naked Blackmagic mounting pattern, and those are countersunk on the other side, so you can put the screws through, and those are included in the kit, and tighten them down, and then the motors can just go on top of that. And the third option is a GoPro, and you could even mount it on the front or the back. You can put a press nut in this hole here, so you can mount, and included in the kit is the GoPro mount. You can put that on the front here, or you could put it facing backwards, and this will absolutely rip with a GoPro. It's so light for a 5-inch Cinewhoop, it'll really tear that thing around. You can get some great stuff, and the frame is really rigid and it's pretty durable as well. And there is actually a fourth option, and that is this mounting pattern here, and that's the full-size KD camera mount or the DAC mount. So you could put this DAC mount here on it, even just like that, and that would mount on, maybe a little bit big for this frame, but I thought I'd put the option there if anyone wants to do it. For battery mounting, you've got all of this space on the back, and there's loads of space. The battery strap just goes through here, put some battery pads on, and it comes with this print and this hard-mounted XT60 to put this in the back here like that to really secure it on, and then the battery just plugs into that, and it's a very clean mounting. You've also got this top hard mount here, so you could use this XT60 that's included in the kit and mount the XT60 in there. So that would be good if you're using naked Blackmagic, because the cage will sort of come to about here, and then you can just plug your battery from the top straight into there. If you're using GoPro, you've got a third option even, and that's this hard mount here. So you can put the XT60 there, and then you could just have your battery coming here and just plug that straight into the middle, and that's really convenient. You've got antenna mounting options as well. You've got these SMA mounts here on the side of the frame, which I really like, especially if you're using the O3 here or the OGA unit. Those are really good. And you've also got a mounting hole here, and that comes with a 3D print that will adapt that hole to an O3 or a Vista standard antenna mount. So you could just have it coming up straight through there, especially if you're using GoPro, that's a good option. This is also the same size hole as an SMA, so you could put an SMA through here if you just wanted one, or you could just have one on either side if you want as well. Then you've got camera mounting at the front for O3 or Vista cameras or whatever you want really, and you could tuck this inside as well. I just like it having coming out of the front. It gives a little bit more room for the O3 inside here, but there's plenty of space in general. You just need to make sure that you do a really clean, tight build, make sure everything is completely secured, because if anything is flapping loose, it will get caught up in the props. And then I've just got my capacitor and wires coming out the back there, just straight into there, into that hard-mounted XT60, and it all works really well. Now you might wonder how I determined the spacing between the props. And basically I did this by trial and error. I started with 2 spacers of the 3mm carbon, and I flew it as hard as I could, and the props touched and it exploded and crashed to the ground. It actually wasn't quite as dramatic as that, because as you'll see, when these props are touching, if they were to touch, they're going in the same direction. So even if there's a speed mismatch, it won't necessarily be catastrophic, but obviously you don't want that. So I increased it to 3 spacers and found even in the hardest moves, in the positions which would cause the maximum deflection between 2 props, I found that with 3 spacers, they wouldn't move. And so what I've done here is I've included 10 spacers in the kit. So you could run it like I have here with 4 on one side and 1 on the other side, or you could run it like I have here with 0 spaces on one and 3 spaces on the other, and either will do. And I usually find this is good for taller motors, and these are slightly smaller motors, 2207s. They're a bit taller, so that lifts it a little bit further above the flight controller, and that works really well. So either 1 and 4 or 0 and 3, and you've got the option for both. All the recommended parts are on the website. So if you go down to the bottom of the website description, you'll see recommended parts for both of these. And this one runs on a standard 5-inch motor, 2207, and that works well. It's underpowered like a Cinewoop if you want that, and you want it to be a little bit lighter and you want to use normal 5-inch motors, that works. And you can also use the classic sort of 2806.5 5-inch Cinewoop Cinelifter motors. Those are really good, and that gives a little bit more power, a little bit more performance. And actually the efficiency seems to be about the same with either one of these motors. It's just you can push this one a little bit harder. And then lastly, you just have these 4 landing feet on the bottom to give it a little bit of clearance when you're coming in and protect the bottom carbon. So this is how I mount the Blackmagic Micro 4K G2 on the KD camera mount light, and check out that video or the link to the website to see exactly how that camera mount works. But this is how I have it here, and the way that I have designed these 30 by 30 mounting holes here with the press nuts gives a very good center of gravity with the battery on this frame. And it also enables you, even with the widest angle lens, to have nothing in view at the front, of course. And obviously this mount is adjustable, but again, check the video to see exactly how that works. You can tilt it up to 50 degrees and down to 0 degrees. Let's go over the build of this frame. What you get included are the 2 carbon top and bottom plates. You get all the standoffs, you get all the 3D prints, you get all the hardware, you get all the press nuts, everything you need. You just need your electronics. So let's start off with how you mount everything. You've got your ESC and flight controller stack here in the rear, and you've got these countersunk M3x20 screws that go all the way through, and that's neatly mounted like you can see there. And there's this 3D printed cover. You don't need to use that, but if you want to, you can use that, and it gives a nice protective cover for the flight controller. You can route wires underneath, and you just cut out wherever you need your USB to be. Another tip is if you're using these larger, wider motors, this right-angled USB connector can pop in and be an easy fit sometimes if you can't get a straight-angled one through, or you can have your USB coming out the back and connect to it like that easily enough. If you're using normal 2207 style motors, that shouldn't be an issue. There should be plenty of space to get access to the USB. Then you've got your motors, and obviously you've got to choose how many spaces you want. My advice would be, if you're using these 2806.5 motors, use 4 spaces on this side and 1 on this side, and then obviously the opposite for the diagonal. And if you're using the standard 5-inch 2207 motors, then use 3 spaces on this side and no spaces on this side. And those screws for the motors are also included in the kit if you're using 3 and 1. And then you've got your 03 or Vista or whatever VTX you want to use. And there are mounting holes for that here, sort of 20 by 20 and 25 by 25. I prefer actually just to use some 3M double-sided VHB tape. That works really well. And then I zip tie down the antenna extenders for the SMAs, and then I put those on here on the side like this. And you want to be really clean in your mounting of this so that these props do not cut them when they're coming close like that. So you want to be really clean in this mounting, and the same goes for the whole frame. Make sure it's really tight and clean and nothing's going to get chopped up. That's why I'd recommend this for someone who's built several drones before at least. Then you've got your camera mounting, and if you're using the KD camera mount light, there's also a video on that, and that's available on the website. Then that goes into the press nuts here with these 30.5 by 30.5 mounting patterns, and those get installed in there. And then I put my camera back in the middle of that because that fits really nicely. I like using the Maytech 12S Pro. I put my receiver on top of that, and you just need to put everything else in that you need. I've got my receiver antennas, express the rest out here, capacitor, zip ties nicely onto there, my hard mounted XC60. Depending on where you want to put it, you've got all those mounting options I mentioned previously. So everything goes on this top plate, all mounts like this. It's a pretty simple build, but you need to really be clean and do it properly, otherwise things are going to get caught and you're going to have issues. So make sure it's all clean and proper and done up nicely, and it should look something like this. And then you're just simply going to take the bottom plate like that. It can actually go 180 degrees, it can go either way, it doesn't matter. And that is just going to screw on with the included M3x8 countersunk screws. I like to start with the middle one just to secure it all in, and then use a 2mm driver just to get that lined up. And then these feet go on here with the M3x12 button head screws. Those go on the 4 corners. I like to do those next just to align everything properly with the 3D prints. Do those and then just do the rest of the screws. Now that's all screwed together, All you need to do is mount your antennas, and you're done. Then you just mount your camera and your battery, test out everything, and off you go. I'm really looking forward to seeing how everyone enjoys this and what you come up with and what you create with it. Such a small compact cinelifter, able to carry some really nice cameras, has lots of versatility, and has amazing flight performance.